Selamat datang ke ASM Podcast yang dibawakan khas oleh Akademi Sains Malaysia. Siri podcast ini merupakan platform perkongsian topik-topik berkaitan sains, teknologi, inovasi dan ekonomi STIE secara santai dan mudah difahami. Setiap episod akan menampilkan jaringan pakar ASM yang akan berkongsi pengalaman dan pendapat mereka tentang STIE seiring dengan etos ASM. Budayakan sains, raikan teknologi, cetuskan inovasi.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mazlan Othman. I would like to welcome you to the 5th episode of our ASEAN Forecast podcast. In today's episode, we focus on World Hunger Day. It is an annual occasion observed on May 28th. This day serves as a reminder of the persistent issue of hunger that affects millions of people around the world, particularly in developing countries. World Hunger Day highlights the interconnected challenges of poverty, food insecurity, access to clean water, health, and education. Now, in 2019, the ASEAN Foresight Alliance, AFA, was established with the goal of fostering connections between ASEAN initiatives and other global foresight initiatives. Now, operating under the AFA umbrella, the Academy of Sciences Malaysia, or ASM, is actively engaged in producing a report. This is the ASEAN Science, Technology and Innovation Ecosystem, which is STIE. So it is the ASEAN Science, Technology and Innovation Ecosystem Foresight 2035 report. This report will explore worldwide megatrends and their potential impacts on science, technology, and innovation in the ASEAN region. The central idea here is the necessity for ASEAN nations to collaborate in collectively addressing these trends for the mutual benefit of the entire community. So in line with this objective, ASM is hosting a series of podcasts and webinars to delve into the intricacies of establishing and managing the science, technology, and innovation ecosystem. So we are very lucky that we have an esteemed guest today, Dr. Kommate, now I have to say this properly, Jitvanishphaibool. Kommate Jitvanishphaibool, who is the Deputy Director of the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC Center for Technology Foresight in Thailand. Supported by the Thai government, the center is currently housed under the Office of the National Higher Education Science Research and Innovation Policy Council. We call it NEXPO. Over the past decade, the center has expanded its focus to tackle key issues in the APEC region, like water, energy, and emerging diseases. Now, as projects have become more intricate, they now involve a wide range of experts from various fields, highlighting the importance of merging technologies and knowledge to attain shared objectives. Dr. Kommate's in his capacity as Deputy Director, he focuses on enhancing foresight capabilities within APEC and utilizing foresight methodologies to address shared challenges such as climate change. Additionally, he's held positions as the Director of Strategy and Planning, contributing to policy research and the formulation of Thailand's science, technology, and innovation strategy. As the Director of Innovation Ecosystem, he conducted policy research aimed at strengthening Thailand's innovation ecosystem. So, Dr. Kommate, today we'll be focusing on world hunger or world food security. And thank you for making your time to be with us virtually to discuss today's topic, which is World Hunger Day and food security. There are a few questions.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Dr. Kommate. There are a few questions I will ask you. Now, in terms of strategic planning and transformation, this work which you have been doing actively for the last few years. Now, how can, given your expertise, how can policymakers such as yourself effectively leverage foresight capabilities to address future challenges in food security?
Well, I think we need to embed this foresight as a necessary discipline for policymakers, especially the top leaders and young officers. Also, we need to distribute foresight knowledge to other stakeholders, including private sector and citizens. And by engaging all these stakeholders in a dialogue about future scenarios and encouraging them to think about long-term fixed scenarios. This will help prepare us for the future challenges. And in order to build this effective foresight capability, we need to train people in foresight methodology and tools and trying to embed it, foresight thinking into organizational culture. And you see, it's a huge task and it's a challenging task because it needs dedicated policy and resources.
So that was foresight. So
Yes.
using foresight. So given your experience then, what role do you think policy research and strategic planning can play in shaping international efforts to address food insecurity and promote sustainable food practices, and particularly in our region, please, Dr. Kommate?
This foresight security is a very, very big challenge. I think we need to conduct system research in order to understand the whole system, the whole food system, and identify key bottlenecks and leverage points. That means we need to look at the agricultural system production, food processing, food storage and transport, waste management, and so on. You can see that it's a very complicated system. So after we bring everyone to think about this, and we might come up with an agreed policy framework. Strategic plans can be designed to realize those policy goals, and we can have a broad strategic plan as a guideline for each country to look up to, and then each country can look at that guideline and decide their own strategic plan according to specific context of their countries.
Where do politics and diplomacy come in these efforts?
Oh, it comes at the beginning. Normally, when we do this kind of policy study and we try to put it into action, we need the top leaders to get involved. We need to get buy-in. So along the way, we need to bring those top executives, those leaders to get involved, to get buy-in at the beginning.
Because in the end, the bottom line is economics. And sometimes we lack political will because of economic reasons. Do you think that all this put together, the politics, the economy, this have, caused a lot of the problems that we have today?
Exactly. Actually, because most countries focus more on economic side, not on the environmental side or social side. It causes unbalance in the development of their countries. As you can see now, the problem of climate change accelerates because most countries focus on economies at the beginning, and so we have to solve this kind of big problem right now in order to balance the development of the country.
Yes, and increasingly food supply is being used as a weapon to get points. In fact, there's a tendency to use food as a part of the sanctions or part of a cartel, which I think is totally unconscionable. should never be part of any kind of sanction or weapon to be used against another country or another government. How
Yeah,
do
I
you
totally
think?
agree with you.
Yes. So, how are there any international conventions that disallow this?
Well, it's a tough question to answer. I I I think uh, we agree that we should not use the the anything that related to food security as a weapon or as a sanction. But how do we prevent that to happen? That's very difficult to do. Even though we have many organizations that working on that, some has some are successful, but some are not. As you can see, example right now, the war between Ukraine and Russia that
Yes.
caused food food chain disruptions, and we cannot do anything about it. It's a huge problem to solve. So so countries that have uh, problem about food chain disruption because they rely more on importing food from overseas. They need to rethink about their food system.
Right.
How do they do this sustainable food system in their own country?
Yes, I guess this is the lesson or some of the lessons we will learn from conflicts like this.
Yes.
Um, so we think that there should be some strategic transformations in this context. So could you share examples of successful strategic transformations in the context of food security and sustainable food practices?
Well, I can think of two interesting example with different contexts depending on the countries. And the first example is the agriculture for nutrition project
Mm-hmm.
implemented in Laos. And in Laos, they have many uh, people that in need of nutrition, and they need to raise income. So they have this project in order to tackle this malnutrition and rural poverty by providing nutrition education and agricultural training. And there are some interesting activities that they implement, such as they have these farmer nutrition schools to teach people about nutrition.
Yes.
And they have some activities like training local service providers and develop value chain with enterprise in Laos. And even though it seems very simple, but it proves to be successful because they can they show that they can have 20,000 households that have food skill after the project, and about 15,000 households now have income above the poverty line. So they success in what they want.
Okay.
A very simple example here. And another case that I would like to discuss here is this project is still going on. It's not finished yet, and it's a 30 by 30 initiative by Singapore. You might have heard about this initiative.
30 by 30.
Yes, initiatives.
But please tell us more.
Yes. Singapore is totally different from Laos. We know that in terms of context of the country. And Singapore relies on food imports from overseas. 90% of the food are from overseas. So they are vulnerable to food supply disruptions as they faced during the COVID-19 pandemic and the war from Russia and Ukraine. So they've been thinking about this, and they look at the emerging trends that will affect their food supply chain, such as the global demand in food, the climate change, and geopolitical conflicts. So they came up with three strategies to deal with this problem. And the first strategy is diversify import sources. Second strategy is grow local, which means they are encouraging their local enterprise to grow more food. And the third strategy is to grow overseas to help local company to expand abroad. The 30 by 30 initiative is for implementing the second strategy, the grow local. So in order to do that, that Singapore has a big challenge in terms of food production
Of
because
course.
they have less than 1% of land that can be used for agriculture.
Yes.
So very, very big challenge. So what they do is they rely on technology and innovation to solve this problem. So they will invest a lot in vertical farming and those kind of technologies. And they also provide a lot of funding for projects like sustainable food production, future foods, food safety, and so on. So you can see that for these two cases, different contexts of the country give you a different strategy.
Okay, so those are the two examples. Thank you for those examples. Now, there's also we are also looking at food security, world hunger, all of this in the context of changing environmental conditions, population growth. So, what do you think is the future of food production and food distribution systems in ASEAN? Is the situation dire? Is it good? Is it bad? What is that future?
Well, because in the future we can see the trend already that we have population, we might have about 9.7 billion people in 2050. And so the food production needs to be increased by, I think, at least 70% by that time. And we know the climate change, the impact of climate change already. So from what I see, personally, I see that I see more and more of indoor farming, urban farming.
Okay.
Just like in Singapore, but it might happen. It could happen also in many countries in ASEAN and in around the world because the agricultural land that can be used keep decreasing because of climate change. And I think we will see more of the culture meat in the market because those livestock industry it takes about 75% of lands and it produce about 18% of greenhouse gas. Huge
Yes.
amount of greenhouse gas. So in order to reduce that, I think they will ship the food production to the lab instead of on the ground. And some other thing that I see is we might see personalized food production, meaning that we produce food that is suitable for ourselves, have enough nutrition for ourselves, can prevent disease, something like that. But they might be maybe 10 years from now. It's not very, very, it's not going to be very early. And I think we should see drone to home delivery. That we know that it's already in the experimental phase, and it might come up soon for commercial.
So I could plant my own rice in my house, Dr. Kommate?
You can. Yes, I think you can.
Okay.
With nutrition that you design.
Yes. I have always had this thought, it's very nice for some of us to think that we want to live off the grid, meaning that you don't get supplies from outside. Now, we Asians, we love our rice. And I've always thought if we all lived off the grid, we can't afford to be planting our own rice because we won't have the space, and the conditions where rice thrive. But now you're telling me that we can actually, in the future, grow our own rice in our house or in our house compound. That's very interesting. Yeah. So now we can live off the grid because we don't.
Yes.
Yeah. Of course, we can always substitute rice with something else. But we all have rice withdrawal symptoms if we don't eat rice every day. So it's hard for Asians. Anyway, let's go on to discuss foresight and innovation, Dr. Kommate. So, as I said right in the very beginning, you are an expert in foresight, in carrying out foresight. Now, Thailand is a member of both APEC and ASEAN, just like Malaysia. So, in terms, so what are the similarities and differences that are being developed, whether separately or otherwise, in APEC and ASEAN that address food security?
Well, I think in APEC, we also have some framework in APEC already in place, and we have what we call the APEC Policy Partnership on Food Security. For this for this working group, they have already developed a food security roadmap toward 2030, and there are actually some key actions that they put in place, and they are very active in terms of trying to drive this to action. I think similar to ASEAN, just that in the APEC we have more and more economies. That means we have more political
Right.
viewpoints, and we need to play with those political viewpoints also.
Yeah, I suppose
In ASEAN, we believe we also have that similar framework and action plan already. And
so. The disparities in ASEAN are different from the disparities in APEC. So there would be different strategies.
Yes, because you have more economies in APEC.
Yes.
So where we have very variety of needs and demands compared to ASEAN.
Okay, so so my next question, my follow-up question would be: so what are being practiced or applied within the APEC context that we can transfer to ASEAN? Anything interesting?
Well, I think one thing that we learn is that we need to start with a common grand challenge that all stakeholders, all countries are agree upon, and we need to set the goal for the benefit of all countries, not just one, and we need to play the balance between contents and politics. Very important, because most of the time it might lean to the politics side, yet we need all countries to agree in order to make it happen. And I think one thing is we need to send key message, find a way to send key message to top leaders to get buy-in. And without that, not everything we will not follow. And so what we normally do is we try to work closely with the host economy, the host APEC economy for that year in order to push some of the key message to be spelled out. I think similar things can be used within ASEAN also. And ASEAN is smaller in terms of size, but still I think it's not very easy to get buy-in from all top leaders.
Sure,
you have to
sure.
play politics.
As said, there's always in the end, there's always politics, apart from the economy. So how useful do you think have foresight methodologies been in addressing food security challenges globally?
I think foresight is one of the methodologies that we can use to bring people together, people in all levels together to think about future, desirable future that they want. And we can also use foresight tools to look at the trends that could happen in the future, so that people see what might impact their life in the future, and then we can find a transformative pathway to get to our desirable future. This kind of thing can be applied for food security and other challenges.
Yeah, I found that in doing foresight studies, and I've been doing several, that in carrying out a foresight study, you have no choice but to do your environmental scanning, for instance. And in doing so, You have to. It's about being transdisciplinary. You're no longer. You're not bringing just multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary now. We have to work together in an integrated manner right from the start, and so. But we can do this when we're doing the foresight, and in carrying out the foresight, people then have no choice but to recognize that all the fields, all the experts in the fields have to come together. And I think one of the biggest advantage to me of doing the foresight is we're bringing all the experts together right from the start. We're not bringing them around the table, later on just to exchange ideas or views. So I think that to me, the foresight technology has been, methodology has been brilliant for that. So we've talked, yeah, and you have illustrated some of that. So we have talked about foresight methodology. Let's talk about innovation. So now, how can our innovation ecosystem be used to address food insecurity?
Well, in order to transform existing food system, I think we need to find innovative way to do that, and we need a system that can also provide us innovative solution to solve this food security. So innovation ecosystem, I think, plays a key role here, because scientific breakthroughs, disruptive technologies, innovations are the results of the effective innovation ecosystem, or broader science, tech, and innovation ecosystem. So those partners, stakeholders like universities, private sectors, research institutes, they play a key role here. Startup also included. So innovation ecosystem, good innovation ecosystem will help us to get there, to get the breakthroughs, technical disruption that we want, or startup that we want.
So in talking about innovation, we can't run away from emerging technologies. Yeah. So can you, I'm sure you want to do this very much, what can tell us what role can emerging technologies like AI, synthetic biology or biotechnology, genetic engineering, all of that, how can they contribute to ensuring food security and sustainability?
We all agree that emerging technologies, some of them are key drivers to push the transformation of the food system forward to sustainable food security.
Right.
And for example, AI can use in many applications, like vertical farming, controlled by AI, use less natural resources with more productivity. And this can solve the problem of the agricultural land that we have less and less.
Yes.
And you talk about biology, the culture meat that produced using synthetic biology. This can help solve future demand of meat, and it also can reduce greenhouse gas considerably. The example of the emerging technology that we are betting on at the moment.
You're talking about meat, what do you call that? Meat that you generate yourself? You refer to
culture meat or lab-grown meat.
Dr. Kommate, do you think that one day we can completely wean the human race to want to eat meat, because we are creating all this kind of meats because we have a desire to taste this meat. Do you think within a few generations we can be weaned off our, our want to eat meat?
It's quite difficult for me.
You think so? Culturally, I suppose it's difficult, yeah?
But I think because there are some nutrients that are in meat. I think even though genetically we are using some synthetic biology, we can maybe put some nutrition extra in plants.
Yeah.
But well, it's about I think it's about the taste, and it's about the look, the meat and plant. When we look at both, we feel okay. If I'm not a vegetarian, I would go for meat first. But in the future, maybe if we can make food that is look like meat, taste like meat, with nutrition, but not from meat, then it might happen.
Yes, I'm quite intrigued by that situation. Okay, so then we talked the technologies that you talked about. There could be potential risks or unintended consequences. What are those? I mean, can we make sure that we do not create dire situations in adapting to new technologies? Yeah.
Yes. Well, new technologies always leads to some negative impacts, like job loss, and behavioral changes, and outdated law and regulations. AI, for example, uh, using AI in agriculture can cause risk in terms of cyber attack and privacy of data, because you rely on a lot of data in order to do that farm management. It can also create job loss in farm operations. And but on the other hand, by not using AI, it might impact some of the small scale farmers who are not able to use AI, and this might cause them to go out of business. If you look at different scenario. So as a policymaker, we have to look at all possible scenarios and try to find try a way to handle those scenarios.
Of course, there's been a lot of doubt about genetic engineering for food. So this will be an ongoing debate. I think
Yes,
that will
lab
be.
grown meat also create a lot of debates, in terms of unforeseen consequence by eating those meat. And they also
yes, carry on.
have to do have big question about safety, nutrition, and so on.
Yes, and also it's only been like one generation that's been consuming genetic engineered food, so we can't say with confidence that we know all the side effects of consuming genetically engineered food. That to me is another big subject altogether. Now, can I go back to Thailand, please? So we know that Thailand has the largest export of agriculture products and food in ASEAN. In fact, I know in Malaysia, we're so jealous the way, you guys are going on about this. And you have an export value of agriculture products and food to a value of 31.2 billion US dollars. So I'm sure there are things we can learn from Thailand. So how can Thailand help neighboring countries that are struggling with food insecurities?
As I mentioned earlier, I think in ASEAN, we already have some ASEAN frameworks, like the ASEAN Integrated Food Security Framework, and have the strategic plan of action on food security in ASEAN. And I think we can use this framework and frame of action and plan of action as a guideline for collaboration. And I think Thailand can help strengthen the market connection and distribution network of agriculture and food products through some trade agreements with other neighboring countries. We can also provide technical assistance for sustainable agriculture and food production.
Right.
Also, I think we can support in upskilling and reskilling workforce.
Yes.
And one thing that I think we should do with our neighboring countries is that we should together create a shared vision and framework for a long-term sustainable food system. So this is when foresight can be used to
Yes.
to make it happen. I think our neighboring countries, especially those who struggle with food insecurity, are in need of a long-term plan.
Good. I hope that these are some of the things we could implement in the ASEAN in executing what sort of STI system that we need to promote the growth of our economy, and some of the things you mentioned in terms of food production should be implemented in that way. So I'm going to try and round up this discussion, Dr. Kommate. I have the second last question is about what would be the most pressing challenges hindering progress for us to achieve global food security? What are your views on this?
Well, this is a very, very tough question.
Yes, yeah.
Because there are so many challenges.
Yes.
So I need to do some research, and I think the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization, they point out top challenge that I agree. The first challenge is climate change. We all know about climate change. We know the impact of climate change that affects the agricultural productivities, resulting in decrease of food access to food. And the second challenge is geopolitical conflicts. We see the impact at the moment. The war in Russia and Ukraine that disrupt the food supply chains. And the third challenge is economic downturns. And whenever we have this big economic downturns, it affects the whole world, and it affects a lot of people, especially poor people, in terms of accessing to food. They may have job loss, they cannot afford the food, and this will also create nutrition problem for them. And I also look at other sources to see if other people have any different and interesting comment about this big challenge. And I see that most of people are looking at a very similar picture. Climate change, geopolitical conflicts.
Yes.
Those are the big challenges.
Right. So, is there something you want to say about the strategies that we can put in place to promote resilience in our food systems?
In our food system,
well, what strategies can we put in place?
I think, first of all, we need to have a policy coherence to create synergy in driving a transformation toward sustainable food system. We cannot just, okay, I want to do this, you want to do this. We have to come together, even within a country. All organizations, especially government organizations, need to come together and draw just one plan for them to take action. And second, I think we need to invest more and more in science and technology.
Great.
Also innovation.
always, yeah.
Always. And I think third, we need to also strengthen those small-scale farmers and local food producers in terms of technology and innovation capability, because we need them in the food chain. We cannot just ignore them. And also, I think we need to encourage behavioral change towards sustainable food consumption, meaning that we need to educate people, our citizens, about sustainable food consumption. They need to be responsible for this too. They are a big part of the system. And also, I think we need to create a platform for sharing knowledge and technical assistance, especially international ones. Those are kind of strategy that I can think of.
Thank you. Oh, thank you very much. I'm afraid we've come to the end of this podcast. Dr. Kommate, thank you so much for those insights you have given us. And for those of you out there listening, I hope we'll be able to think about what Dr. Kommate has said, and especially we have to reflect on the reason we are still talking about why we're discussing these things on a World Hunger Day. Will there come a time when we no longer have to not celebrate, but think about world hunger? So again, thank you so much. And I look forward to interacting with you in the next few months as we try to complete our report. Thank you, Dr.
Yes,
Kommate.
thank you for having me here. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
All right then. Bye.
Bye.